The Great Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with light from thousands of alien worlds. Massive windows showed the swirling colors of nearby nebulae, casting soft blue glows over the curved rows of delegates. Every seat was filled. Creatures of all shapes and forms, scaled, feathered, luminous, mechanical, waited in heavy silence. At the center, under the high crystal dome, stood the speaker, a tall alien with silver eyes and a long flowing robe that shimmered like starlight. When he raised his hand, the entire hall quieted. "We gather today," his voice echoed through the chamber, "to decide the fate of the most dangerous species in the galaxy, humans." His words rolled across the seats like a wave. Some nodded in agreement, others whispered in unease. On the walls around them, massive screens came to life, showing clips from Earth's history. Wars that burned cities, nuclear blasts that tore through the sky, soldiers shouting in fear and fury, humans turning against their own kind. "They are emotional, unpredictable, violent," the speaker continued. "They have killed billions of their own species. How long before they destroy us all?" A murmur of agreement rose through the crowd. The holo images shifted to scenes of alien ambassadors fleeing riots, planets scarred by human weapons, and outposts where humans had refused to follow council law. The council had tried to guide them, to control their nature, but humans never bowed easily. They adapted. They questioned. They fought. The speaker pointed a silver finger toward the galaxy map above them. "If we allow them to remain among us, they will spread chaos beyond repair. The time has come to protect the galaxy from their madness." Then came the vote. Thousands of glowing crystals rose into the air, each one representing a world's decision. One by one, they flashed red, the color of exile. The hall filled with light as the result appeared on the central display. Vote passed, exile the human species. Applause filled the chamber, but not all joined in. A few alien delegates sat in silence, their faces troubled. One of them, a small avian creature from a distant world, leaned toward her neighbor and whispered, "Do you think they will accept it quietly?" The other delegate, a scaled reptilian from the core sectors, hissed softly, "Humans never accept quietly. But it doesn't matter. They are powerless now." The speaker raised his arms high. "Effective immediately, all human colonies will be cut off from council aid, trade, and travel. Earth is to be isolated. No ship enters, no signal leaves. Let the humans fade into their own chaos." The chamber erupted in celebration. Music of alien tones filled the air. But far beyond that shining hall, deep in the darkness between stars, humanity was already listening. On Earth, a cold wind blew over silent cities. Every news broadcast carried the same message. The council had voted. Humanity was exiled. Some people cried, others shouted in anger, and some simply stared at the sky in disbelief. But among them were those who did not fear. In hidden bases and secret colonies, people worked without rest. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, men and women who had long suspected this day would come. They had seen the way the council looked at them, with fear disguised as order. For years, they had built in silence, beyond the council's eyes. They had hidden fleets, new weapons, new ideas. They had prepared for exile. In orbit above Mars, a small group of ships powered up without transmitting signals. One by one, they disappeared from galactic scanners as if erased. The Council's surveillance networks tried to locate them, but every system returned the same answer: no data found. Confused officials assumed human technology had failed again. They didn't know humanity had learned to cloak. On the Council's capital world, the speaker smiled as he watched the exile orders being transmitted across the stars. "It is done," he said proudly. "The galaxy is safe." But deep inside the Council's own communication network, a strange pattern of numbers began to repeat. Slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. No one paid attention. It was dismissed as a glitch. Yet those who worked in secret intelligence noticed something strange. Human outposts that had been marked for closure were going dark, but not destroyed. They simply vanished. Whole settlements disappeared without distress calls. Patrol ships sent to investigate never returned. Within weeks, the edge of known space grew silent. One council admiral demanded answers, but the speaker waved his concern away. "It is human chaos consuming itself," he said calmly. "Let them destroy each other." But even as he spoke, in the cold void beyond the galactic border, vast human ships were being built, massive, silent, and unseen. The humans did not cry or plead. They remembered. They had always known the galaxy feared them not for their violence, but for their potential. Humanity had always been too emotional, too creative, too alive to fit under alien control. Exile was not their end. It was their beginning. On the surface of the moon, under the shadow of Earth, an old human commander stood before a screen displaying the Council's final decree. "They think they ended us," he said quietly, "but they only made us free." Around him, hundreds of officers stood silently, their faces lit by the glow of engines being prepared for departure. The commander turned and spoke again, his voice steady. "Let them celebrate. Let them believe we are gone. When they look for us again, they will see the truth of what they have done." Outside, beyond the glass dome, stars shimmered like cold fire. The fleets began to move, vanishing into the void, leaving only the silent echo of their engines. The galaxy slept in false peace, unaware that the species they had exiled would one day return, not as the outcasts they imagined, but as the rulers of the stars. The silence that followed humanity's exile stretched across the galaxy like a dark shadow. Once busy trade routes where human freighters carried goods and laughter now drifted empty and quiet. The bright blue that had once represented Earth on galactic maps was now marked in dull gray, restricted zone. Most aliens celebrated. News channels called it the dawn of a safer galaxy. But not everyone believed that peace had truly returned. In the dark corners of the Council's communication network, reports began to appear, small, strange, and easily ignored. A mining ship near the Perseus Arm reported seeing a large fleet moving without identification codes. A patrol station claimed to have detected human energy signatures from beyond known space. But every time they tried to trace the signal, it vanished like mist. The Council dismissed the reports as old data, ghosts of systems still resetting after the exile. Yet something was moving out there, something organized, quiet, and deliberate. On the cold edges of space, far from the Council's reach, humanity had not fallen. Their colonies, once spread across distant stars, had gone silent only to protect themselves. On one of those hidden worlds, a barren planet with red skies and icy storms, massive underground cities thrived. Lights glowed beneath the surface, and machines hummed day and night. The world was known to its people as Haven. Here, humanity rebuilt what the Council had taken away. Engineers designed faster drives, scientists developed stealth systems that made their ships invisible to alien radar, and soldiers trained under harsh conditions where mistakes meant death. These were not the same humans the Council remembered. These were survivors forged by betrayal. Inside the command chamber of Haven, a man in a dark uniform stood before a massive holographic map showing thousands of red dots, each representing a hidden human settlement. "Every colony is secure," reported a young officer. "No signals detected by the Council. They still believe we're gone." The man nodded slowly. His face was tired but his eyes sharp, filled with something between anger and resolve. "Good," he said. "Let them believe the lie a little longer." Around the room, dozens of officers and scientists stood silently, listening. The man turned toward them and spoke with quiet power. "For centuries, we looked to the stars for unity. We asked for a place among them. And they exiled us. They called us dangerous, reckless, unfit to stand beside them. But I say this, they were right to fear us. Because what they feared is exactly what we will become." The room fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Then one by one, the humans placed their hands over their hearts, the new salute of the Terran Union. The Terran Union was born in the dark. There were no parades, no banners, no cheering crowds. Only a promise whispered through every hidden base and secret colony. Never again will others decide our fate. Humanity had become something new, united, disciplined, and silent. They learned from their mistakes, from their wars, from every scar they carried. They studied alien technology, understanding every strength and weakness. What the Council didn't know was that human scientists had cracked something the rest of the galaxy thought impossible. A new form of energy that allowed their ships to bend light itself. Cloaked fleets could travel unseen, slipping between star systems like shadows. Months passed. The Council continued to ignore the strange disappearances along its borders. Patrol fleets sent to monitor human remains never returned. Alien merchants began to whisper of ghost ships that passed silently through the void, ships that bore the ancient flag of Earth. The Speaker of the Council grew annoyed. "Old myths," he declared. "Humans destroy themselves. It is their nature. They cannot organize long enough to threaten anyone." His voice carried arrogance, but his eyes betrayed doubt. On Haven, the first Terran assembly gathered inside a colossal underground dome. Thousands of humans filled the chamber: generals, engineers, teachers, and farmers. Every colony had sent a representative. The air was heavy with emotion. A young woman stepped forward, her uniform marked with the insignia of the new Terran Defense Fleet. Her voice trembled at first, but it grew stronger with each word. "We were cast out," she said. "They thought exile would break us. But exile freed us. We no longer serve the Council. We no longer beg for peace. We will make our own destiny, and when the galaxy looks our way again, they will see who truly rules the stars." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause that echoed through the caverns. While the Council's propaganda spoke of stability, fear quietly spread among alien civilizations. Small colonies near human space began to report mysterious broadcasts, distorted, whispering signals that played the same message over and over: "You exiled us. We remember." No one could trace the source. Some believed it was a trick of solar interference, but deep down, they knew the truth. The humans were watching them. One night, in the central command of the Council's intelligence division, a young alien analyst sat alone, reviewing sensor data. He noticed a strange pattern: small energy spikes across multiple sectors, forming a perfect ring. It was as if someone was drawing a boundary around Council space. "That can't be right," he muttered, zooming in. The readings showed advanced warp signatures, far beyond anything the Council possessed. He hesitated, then sent the report up the chain. Hours later, his access was revoked. The next morning, he was gone. His workstation was erased. Back on Haven, human ships launched silently into the void, their hulls glowing faintly under red light. They carried no markings, no beacons. They were the first of the Sentinel fleets, designed to observe, not attack, yet. As they disappeared into deep space, one commander looked out through his viewport and whispered, "They exiled us to the darkness. Fine. We'll make the darkness ours." By the end of that year, the galaxy had grown eerily quiet. Outer Rim colonies stopped reporting in. Trade convoys vanished. Planets once buzzing with alien life now stood abandoned, their skies filled with silent debris. And still, the Council did nothing. They couldn't imagine that the humans, the same emotional, chaotic beings they had dismissed, could organize an empire in exile. But in the silence, humanity had found its strength. They had turned isolation into unity, pain into progress, and fear into purpose. The exile that was meant to destroy them had only made them stronger. And as the stars watched, unseen fleets gathered in the dark, waiting for the day when humanity would step back into the galaxy, not as outcasts, but as something greater than the Council had ever dreamed. Beneath the cold surface of Haven, the hidden world that humanity had claimed after exile, a new dawn began. The underground cities were vast and alive. Steel towers reached toward the cavern ceilings, their lights shimmering like distant stars. Children played in reinforced domes under artificial skies while workers and soldiers walked side by side through glowing corridors that pulsed with power drawn from the planet's core. Humanity had learned to adapt. They no longer needed the sun or the Council's approval. They had built their own light. The command centers buzzed with energy as screens displayed maps of human colonies scattered across the dark edges of space. Each dot represented a thriving settlement, connected by secret warp lanes the Council had no knowledge of. Communication was encrypted through quantum pulses, silent, instant, and untraceable. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved into something far beyond what the Council had imagined. In the great chamber known as the Assembly Hall, the first official gathering of the Terran Union was underway. Delegates from every hidden colony filled the hall. Their faces were tired but proud. Some wore uniforms from Earth's old nations, others wore simple miners' suits or scientist robes, but all shared the same symbol over their hearts, a white circle surrounding a single blue flame, the light of humanity that refused to die. At the center of the stage stood Commander Rael Donovan, the man who had once served as a liaison to the Galactic Council before the Exile. His gray hair and scarred face carried the weight of betrayal and wisdom. He looked over the crowd and began to speak in a voice that echoed through the chamber. When they exiled us, they believed they ended our story. They believed the fire that makes us human would fade. But they forgot something. Fire cannot die in the dark. It grows hotter, brighter, hungrier. His words were met with silence, not because the crowd was unmoved, but because every person in the room felt the truth burning inside them. He continued, "We were scattered, divided, and abandoned. Yet here we stand, united under one purpose. No longer Earthlings. No longer separated by borders or flags. We are Terrans now. One people. One voice. One destiny." The room erupted in applause. Soldiers pounded their fists against their chests. Scientists cheered, and engineers wept quietly. Humanity had found something greater than survival. They had found unity. For the first time in history, humans were not fighting each other. They were building a future together. In the years following the Exile, humanity's technology had grown beyond anything the Council had seen. With no alien interference or restrictions, human scientists pushed boundaries once considered impossible. They harnessed energy from black holes, developed armor that could withstand direct plasma impact, and built fleets capable of moving faster than light without leaving a trace. The crown jewel of their creation was something called the ether drive, a propulsion system that used folded dimensions to move across space instantly. It was faster, quieter, and deadlier than anything in the galaxy. The ether fleet became humanity's invisible sword, hundreds of massive warships hidden across the void, watching, waiting. Yet, not all humans wanted war. Deep within Haven's research district, Dr. Alara Niven, one of the brightest minds in the Union, worked on something different. A device that could reshape communication itself, connecting every human mind through a shared neural link. Her goal was peace, unity, and understanding, a way to prevent humanity from ever falling into the chaos that once destroyed them. But even she couldn't ignore the whispers spreading through the colonies, that the Council's border fleets were growing stronger again, that the galaxy was preparing to move against them once more. In the Capitol Dome, Donovan met with his top admirals in a dimly lit war room. Holograms of the galactic sectors hovered before them. "Our spies confirm the Council has created a new weapon," one admiral said grimly. "They call it the Purifier. They're testing it near the rim systems." Donovan's eyes narrowed. "The same rim where our colonies lie hidden." The admiral nodded. "Yes, sir. They think we're gone, but their experiments are dangerously close to revealing our locations." Donovan's voice dropped to a cold whisper. "Then it's time to remind them what they cast into the dark." The next weeks were filled with movement. Silent orders were sent across encrypted channels. Fleets powered up deep in hidden caverns, engines glowing faintly blue. Pilots, trained since birth in the art of void combat, prepared their ships. The humans did not rush. They had learned patience. They had learned to strike only when the galaxy least expected it. Meanwhile, far from Haven, on a border outpost belonging to the Council, a small alien patrol detected an anomaly, a faint energy wave moving through space without any visible source. The commander of the outpost frowned, tapping at his console. "Probably just debris," he muttered. But then, the stars outside flickered. Dozens of faint blue glows appeared in the darkness, surrounding the outpost like fireflies. Before the aliens could react, every system went dark. Their power failed. Their comms went silent. And in that perfect silence, A single human transmission played across their speakers, "We remember." The message ended. When the council sent a fleet to investigate the next day, the station was gone. No wreckage. No bodies. Just empty space and the faint echo of that human signal. Back on Haven, the message from the vanished outpost reached Donovan. He stood quietly before the screen, watching the report. Around him, his officers waited for orders. "So it begins," he murmured. "The galaxy forgot who we are. It's time they remember." The humans didn't want conquest. They wanted truth. They wanted the council to see the mistake they had made, to see what Exile had created. In the weeks that followed, the Terran Union revealed itself not through war, but through whispers. Their ships appeared in the orbit of dying worlds, delivering food and medicine to alien civilians ignored by the council. They repaired old satellites, rebuilt broken colonies, and offered protection where the council had turned its back. Rumors began to spread, of the exiled humans who now brought peace where the mighty council could not. Some aliens began to question their leaders. Some began to secretly aid the Terrans. The idea that humanity was a curse slowly began to crack. But the council could not accept this. In secret meetings, alien rulers planned to crush any sign of human return. "They are dangerous," the speaker hissed. "They must remain shadows." Yet the shadow was already spreading, and within it, the fire of humanity burned brighter than ever. As the stars turned above Haven, Commander Donovan stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing domes of the city. The hum of engines filled the air. "We were their mistake," he said softly, "but will be the lesson they never forget." Behind him, the first human fleets began their long, silent journey toward the heart of the galaxy, toward the council that had cast them out. Humanity was done hiding. Their rebirth was complete, and the galaxy would soon see that the species it had feared was no longer weak. It was united, patient, and ready to rule. The Galactic Council's grand capital world, Solith Prime, was a jewel of shining towers and floating cities that glowed against the black of space. It had always been a symbol of order and power, a place where no rebellion could ever reach. But now, tension hung heavy in the air. Reports were arriving by the hour, carried by trembling messengers and flickering holograms. Entire border fleets were missing. Remote colonies had gone silent. Merchant routes near the outer rim had collapsed overnight. And through it all, one phrase kept repeating in intercepted transmissions: "We remember." Inside the main council chamber, hundreds of alien delegates shouted over one another. The massive circular room, once filled with calm debate and protocol, had turned into chaos. "It is human sabotage," one delegate cried, her wings shaking with rage. "They swore they were gone." Another, a massive reptilian general, slammed his tail on the marble floor. "Ghost stories. The humans are finished. This is a trick by pirates or smugglers." The speaker of the council rose from his high throne, his silver eyes flashing with irritation. "Silence," he thundered. The chamber fell quiet. "We exiled them years ago. They no longer have the strength to strike at us. We are the masters of this galaxy. Do not forget that." But even as he spoke, a flicker of doubt crept into his voice. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, displaying a map of the galactic border. Red lights pulsed in dozens of systems, signals of lost contact. "The disappearances follow a pattern," said the intelligence director, his thin mechanical voice echoing. "A circular perimeter forming around our outer colonies. Someone, or something, is cutting us off sector by sector." Murmurs spread like fire. The speaker leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "And what lies at the center of this perimeter?" The director hesitated. "The coordinates point to the Terran exclusion zone, Earth's old domain." A hush fell over the chamber. Even the most arrogant members of the council grew pale. For years they had avoided that name, that world. They believed it cursed, filled with ghosts of a dangerous species they had cast out. The speaker tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. "Impossible. Earth has been silent for decades. No signal, no fleet, no colony. Humans are gone." The intelligence director's holographic form flickered. Then who erased an entire outpost of our border fleet last week? Who leaves their mark in our systems and vanishes without trace? He expanded the projection, showing multiple recordings taken by black box devices. Blurry images showed massive dark ships moving through space without light, their shapes sleek and cold. They move like shadows, said the director. No emissions, no warp trails, no radiation signatures. Our sensors can't even confirm they exist, until it's too late. The speaker stared at the images, his heart tightening. What are you suggesting? The director's voice softened. That the exiled ones are no longer the hunted. They are the hunters. The chamber exploded with panic. Delegates shouted for war, for immediate retaliation, for the creation of new fleets to search and destroy. But in their hearts, every one of them felt the same fear. The humans they had dismissed as reckless and weak were back, and they were not the same. Meanwhile, far beyond the Council's reach, the Terran Union's War Council gathered deep within a hidden base carved into an asteroid. The atmosphere was calm and cold. Commander Donovan stood at the center of a circular room surrounded by officers, strategists, and scientists. Holograms of alien fleets hovered above them, glowing faint red. Our shadow operations have reached the final stage, reported Admiral Selin, a young woman with eyes sharp as glass. We've crippled 37 of their outer colonies. They still have no idea it's us. Donovan's gaze lingered on the holograms. They will know soon, he said quietly. They always do. But by then, it will be too late. Dr. Ilara Niven, standing nearby, frowned. We're walking a dangerous line, Commander. If we reveal ourselves too soon, they'll unite again. Fear will bring them together. Donovan nodded slowly. And if we wait too long, they'll come for us first. Fear also makes them strike. He turned toward the viewport, where a massive human fleet floated in silence beyond the asteroid's edge. Hundreds of colossal ships gleamed faintly in the starlight, each one larger than any vessel the Council had ever built. They moved with precision, formation perfect, engines whispering softly. These were not ships of chaos. They were ships of purpose. Across the galaxy, alien citizens began to whisper stories. Traders spoke of black fleets passing silently through the void. Space miners claimed to have seen humans with eyes of fire appearing out of nowhere. Refugees from remote colonies told tales of invisible ships that destroyed entire stations in seconds but left civilians unharmed. They take our soldiers, one frightened survivor said in a broadcast, but they leave our children food. The contradictions drove the Council mad. Were the humans saviors or destroyers? Angels or demons? No one could tell. Back on Solith Prime, fear began to change the air. Military checkpoints appeared on every corner. The Council ordered all travel near the Terran exclusion zone to cease. But the more they tried to control the narrative, the more cracks appeared in their empire. Some of their own worlds began refusing orders. Some openly questioned the speaker's authority. And in the dark, the whispers grew louder. The humans are back. Late one night, as lightning storms flashed across the capital's sky, the speaker stood alone in his private chamber. He stared at a recording from the border patrols, watching the same few seconds over and over again. A massive shape drifting through space, smooth and silent, dwarfing everything around it. For a moment, the ship turned toward the camera, and he could see a faint blue glow on its hull, a symbol he recognized. A white circle surrounding a single blue flame. The mark of humanity. His hands trembled as he paused the frame. No, he whispered. It can't be, but he knew. Deep down, he had always known this day would come. The following morning, the Council called for an emergency summit. The speaker's voice shook slightly as he addressed the assembly. We are not facing pirates or rebels. We are facing the return of a species we exiled. A species that has learned from every failure, that has built an empire in the shadows. We must prepare for war. The chamber fell silent. Then one delegate spoke softly, her voice trembling. But what if they do not come for war? The speaker looked at her, his expression hard. Then we must pray they show mercy. Far beyond Solith Prime, deep in the black of space, the Terran fleet began to move. Their engines burned like dying stars, glowing blue in the darkness. They advanced without words, without warning. In the command ship, Commander Donovan stood before a window of glass, watching the Council's worlds appear one by one on his map. "They called us reckless," he said quietly. "They called us dangerous." He turned toward his officers, his eyes cold and steady. "Now they will see why." And as the fleet disappeared into warp, the first wave of the storm began. Planets that had once laughed at the name of humanity now looked to the sky in fear. The Council had spent years trying to erase the memory of mankind, but memories have a way of surviving, and this time, humanity was not coming to ask for forgiveness. They were coming to remind the galaxy of its greatest mistake. The stars burned quietly over the galactic rim as the human fleet emerged from the void. Thousands of ships, black as night, sleek as shadows, glided in perfect formation. There was no war cry, no warning, no chaos. Only silence. The silence of power. The silence that spoke louder than any threat. Each ship bore the same symbol, a white circle surrounding a single blue flame. The mark of the Terran Union, the empire born in exile. Humanity had returned, not as victims, but as rulers of the dark. At the front of the fleet was the flagship Erebus, a massive warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It moved as if space itself bent to its will, its hull smooth and alive with faint blue light. Inside, Commander Donovan stood before a panoramic window overlooking the stars. His face was calm, unreadable, but in his eyes burned the fire of purpose. Around him, officers worked silently, their movements precise, their focus absolute. "All fleets are in position," said Admiral Selen, stepping beside him. "Outer sectors secured. No resistance detected yet." Donovan nodded slowly. "Good. They will see us before they hear us. Let them feel the fear they once taught us." A message blinked on the main console, an intercepted broadcast from the Council's capital. The speaker's voice crackled through the air, full of panic disguised as authority. "All member worlds, report immediately. Unknown fleets have entered our territory. Maintain calm. Repeat, maintain calm. We are investigating." His words faded into static as the human transmission overrode it. Across every system, every world, every ship under the Council's control, screens turned black. Then a single message appeared in white text: "We are the exiled. We are the forgotten. We are humanity. And we remember." The message repeated once, twice, then disappeared. Across the galaxy, the effect was instant. Chaos. Alien citizens filled the streets, looking to the skies in fear. Soldiers rushed to their stations. Entire planets went on alert. Yet no attack came. No ships fired. No invasions began. Humanity waited in silence, watching, letting the fear grow like a seed. In the council chamber, the speaker slammed his fist on the table. "They dare to taunt us," he roared. "Send the fleet. Crush them before they spread." Generals bowed and rushed to obey, their faces pale. Within hours, thousands of alien warships assembled near the border of the Terran exclusion zone. Massive dreadnoughts and carriers floated in formation, their energy weapons charging. From afar, they looked unstoppable, a wall of light and steel stretching across the stars. The speaker watched through the command screen, confidence returning to his voice. "They think to frighten us with shadows. Let them see true power." But far beyond that glowing armada, hidden behind folded space, the Terran fleet waited. They did not move until every alien ship was in place. Then, with a single quiet order, the humans struck. Space rippled. Blue light tore through the void as thousands of Terran warships appeared, surrounding the enemy fleet in perfect silence. Before the Council's admirals could even react, every alien targeting system went offline. Their communications scrambled. Their engines failed. The stars themselves seemed to darken. "What's happening?" a panicked alien commander screamed as his ship spun helplessly. "They're inside our systems," another cried. Then, through the static, a human voice answered calmly, "You exiled us to the dark. We learned to master it. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Council fleet was neutralized. Not a single shot fired by the humans hit a life support system. They disabled, disarmed, and silenced without killing. When the battle ended, the space around them was filled with drifting ships, alien vessels floating powerless before the Terran Armada. The human flagship transmitted one final message. A simple phrase that echoed across every frequency. This is not war. This is justice. On Solith Prime, the Council fell into chaos. Some worlds begged for peace. Others accused the Speaker of bringing this upon them. Riots broke out. The proud Galactic Council, once the symbol of unity, now trembled like a frightened child. Yet amid the panic, there was something more dangerous, a strange admiration growing among the lower species. They had seen the humans fight without cruelty, conquer without blood. To many, it was proof that the Council had lied. Perhaps the humans were not monsters after all. Perhaps the galaxy had exiled its only hope. Back on the Erebus, the command deck was quiet. The fleet had withdrawn, leaving the defeated armada drifting in silence. Admiral Selin turned to Donovan. "We could have destroyed them," she said softly. "Why didn't we?" Donovan's eyes stayed on the stars. "Because fear lasts longer than fire," he said. "Let them think we came for vengeance. Let them wonder why we spared them. The Council's greatest strength was always their illusion of control. We've taken that from them. Now, they will destroy themselves." In the following weeks, the galaxy changed. Council fleets refused orders. Trade worlds declared independence. Smaller species sent secret messages to the Terran Union, asking for protection. Humanity, once exiled and alone, now held the balance of the galaxy in their hands. But they did not rule through conquest, they ruled through silence. Every move they made was measured, deliberate, and unstoppable. The Council tried to rally its allies, but their calls went unanswered. Trust was broken. Fear had done what war could not. Meanwhile, on Haven, the hidden capital of the Terran Union, Dr. Alara Niven looked out over the glowing cities with tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. "We proved we were never the monsters they said we were." Beside her, an officer shook his head. "No," he said softly. "We showed them something worse. We showed them what happens when monsters learn discipline." Back on Solith Prime, the Speaker stood in his private chamber, staring at the stars. His hands trembled as he whispered to himself, "What have we done?" For the first time in centuries, the mighty ruler of the Galactic Council felt small. The humans they had cast away had become gods in the dark. He turned to his aide. "Open communication to the Terran Union. I will speak to them myself." The aide hesitated. "Sir, what will you say?" The Speaker looked out the window, his voice hollow. "I will ask for mercy." As his message was transmitted into the void, thousands of Terran ships hung silently just beyond his world, their lights glowing faintly like stars reborn. Humanity listened, but they did not answer. Not yet, for they knew the Council's fear was still growing. And fear, once planted, blooms best in silence. The message from the Galactic Council arrived at dawn on Haven, the capital of the Terran Union. The transmission came through layers of encrypted channels, trembling with static and desperation. The Council speaker's voice echoed across the command chamber, once proud and commanding, now broken and uncertain. To the leaders of humanity, he began, "We request peace talks. Let us end this misunderstanding. We acknowledge the harm of the past. The galaxy cannot survive another war." The words hung in the air like a faint echo, almost pitiful. Commander Donovan stood before the screen, silent. Around him, the Council of Admirals and Scientists watched carefully, waiting for his reaction. The silence stretched until Dr. Alara Niven spoke softly. "They are afraid." Donovan turned toward her, his voice calm but sharp. "Good. Fear is a teacher. Let them learn." Outside, the Terran fleet drifted above Haven like a constellation of steel and blue light. The ships were quiet, their engines pulsing like heartbeats. The humans had not fired a single destructive shot since their return, yet they had brought the entire galaxy to its knees. Power was not always in destruction. It was in control. And humanity now controlled everything. The Council's message repeated again, asking for forgiveness, asking for mercy. They cast us out like animals, said Admiral Selen coldly, and now they want peace when they realize we bite harder than they ever dreamed. Her voice carried anger, but beneath it was satisfaction. Humanity had done what no other species had ever done. They had made the entire galaxy fear them without waging a war. Donovan slowly approached the screen, watching the image of the alien speaker. His face was tired, scales dull from sleepless nights. He was not the arrogant ruler who had once demanded humanity's exile. "You want peace," Donovan said quietly, his voice transmitted across the stars. "Peace was what we asked for before you exiled us. Peace was what we offered when you called us dangerous. You feared our emotions, our passion, our fire. You said we were too human." The speaker swallowed hard. "We were wrong," he admitted. "We misjudged your kind." Donovan's tone did not soften. "No. You understood us perfectly. You saw what we could become, and that terrified you. You feared our potential, not our violence." There was a long pause before Donovan spoke again. "Tell me, speaker, when you exiled us, did you ever imagine this day would come?" The speaker said nothing. The silence was answer enough. Donovan turned off the transmission. "No peace talks," he said coldly. "Not yet." In the weeks that followed, humanity's influence spread like wildfire. Council worlds that had once laughed at Earth now begged for Terran protection. Human fleets patrolled their skies, enforcing peace through quiet presence. The galaxy began to change, not by conquest, but by example. Humans rebuilt the worlds the Council had ignored: refugee planets, ruined colonies, forgotten stations. Where the Council had ruled through control, humanity ruled through order. The Terran Union became a symbol not of fear, but of strength, the strength that came from surviving exile and rising from it. Still, not everyone in the Union agreed with Donovan's restraint. Deep inside the War Council chambers, younger officers argued for total domination. "They must pay," one said fiercely. "We should take their capital, make them kneel." Another added, "We can crush them now. Why show mercy to those who showed us none?" Donovan listened quietly before answering. "Because mercy is power," he said. "If we destroy them, we become what they always claimed we were. But if we spare them, we show them what humanity truly is." The room fell silent. Every officer in that chamber had once dreamed of revenge, but Donovan's words struck deeper than pride. Revenge was easy. Justice required patience. Meanwhile, on Soloth Prime, the Council was unraveling. Protests filled the streets. Banners waved with phrases like "the humans were right" and "end the Council's lies." Entire sectors refused to obey orders. The alien citizens who once feared humanity now questioned everything they had been taught. The speaker watched it all collapse. The empire that had ruled for thousands of years was falling apart, not from war, but from guilt. Late one night, in the Council's great chamber, the speaker stood alone. The walls that once glowed with pride were now cracked and dim. He whispered into the emptiness, "How did it come to this?" The answer came not in words but in light. The chamber darkened, then flared with a blue glow as a holographic figure appeared: Commander Donovan. The speaker froze, realizing the humans had broken through even his private network. Donovan's voice filled the room, deep and calm. "You exiled us because you feared what we might become. Now you see it. But we are not your enemies. We are your reflection, the proof of what happens when you choose fear over understanding." The speaker fell to his knees. "Then what do you want from us?" Donovan's hologram stepped closer, eyes cold but not cruel. "We want you to remember. We want you to learn. And when you are ready, you will stand beside us, not above us." The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the speaker alone once more. Across the galaxy, human ships began withdrawing from conquered systems. They left behind repaired infrastructure, clean water, working hospitals, and systems that functioned better than they ever had under the Council. The message was clear. Humanity didn't come to destroy, they came to replace. The galaxy began to understand. On Haven, Dr. Alara Niven stood by the observation deck, watching the stars shimmer across the void. She whispered, "They hated us for being too emotional, too human. And yet, it was emotion that saved us." Donovan approached, his face lit by the glow of distant suns. "Yes," he said quietly, "emotion, unity, and memory. We remember everything they did to us. But more importantly, we remember who we are." He looked out at the horizon, where countless human ships floated silently. "The galaxy will learn from us," he said, "or it will fall before it." As the stars reflected on the glass, a soft alarm sounded. A new transmission arrived, this one not from the Council, but from 1,000 independent worlds, each declaring loyalty to the Terran Union. Humanity's empire had begun, not through conquest, but through choice. The galaxy had finally realized the truth. The exiled species they feared had not vanished. It had risen. And the Council's greatest mistake had become the galaxy's greatest hope. Far above, the fleet began to move again, engines glowing blue as they formed a new constellation across the dark sky. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows of exile. They had become the light the galaxy would follow, or fear. Forever the galaxy was no longer the same. The once mighty Galactic Council, whose word had shaped entire civilizations, now stood fractured and trembling. Every world whispered the same truth. The humans had returned, and nothing could stop them. Yet what terrified the Council most was not the power of humanity's ships or their unmatched technology, it was the silence. Humanity did not conquer worlds. They simply appeared, reshaped them, restored them, and vanished again like ghosts. Their mercy was more terrifying than their wrath. On Solith Prime, the council chambers were almost empty. Many seats that once gleamed with the presence of proud delegates now sat vacant. Some worlds had withdrawn from the council entirely, pledging allegiance to the Terran Union. Others had gone silent, too afraid to choose a side. The speaker, once the most powerful voice in the galaxy, now sat slumped in his throne, the weight of his failures heavy on his shoulders. Around him, a handful of surviving council members argued in hushed voices. "We must fight," one hissed, his skin pale and trembling. "If we surrender, they will rule everything." Another, older delegate shook his head. "They already do. You just haven't realized it yet." The words hung in the air like a curse. The speaker finally rose, his voice trembling but determined. "I will speak to them again," he said. "If humanity wants to lead, let them explain why they should." His aides stared in disbelief. "You would call them here? To Solith Prime?" "Yes," the speaker said. "If the galaxy must bow, let it be before truth." Word spread quickly. Within a week, the humans responded. A transmission echoed through every corner of the Council's crumbling empire. "The Terran Union accepts your invitation," said Commander Donovan's voice. "We will come to your capital, not to conquer, but to remind you of what you created." The day of the meeting arrived under a storm-filled sky. Lightning streaked across the clouds above Solith Prime as a single massive human ship descended toward the capital. A sleek, dark vessel shaped like a blade, glowing with blue light along its edges. It dwarfed every alien craft nearby. The ship landed silently outside the council hall, and its doors opened with a soft hiss. From the mist stepped a small group of humans, soldiers in black uniforms trimmed with silver, their faces calm and unreadable. At their center walked Commander Donovan. His presence was heavy, but not cruel. The crowd of alien citizens watching from behind the barriers fell silent. Some bowed without realizing why. Inside the great hall, the speaker stood waiting, surrounded by guards who looked more frightened than ready. When Donovan entered, every guard instinctively lowered their weapons. There was no order to stand down. They simply felt that resistance was useless. The speaker took a slow breath and stepped forward. "You came," he said softly. Donovan's expression did not change. "You asked," he replied. The hall was quiet. The same chamber that had once voted to exile humanity now stood before the very man who embodied their greatest mistake. The speaker tried to keep his composure. You have the galaxy in fear. Entire worlds bend to your will. You can destroy us at any moment. What is it you want, Commander? What is your endgame? Donovan looked up at the high glass ceiling, where the storm outside flashed white against the darkness. You think this is about revenge, he said quietly. It's not. You exiled us to protect yourselves. You feared our nature. You thought isolation would weaken us. But it united us instead. You taught us something no war could teach, that fear creates strength. The speaker swallowed, his voice breaking. And now that you have that strength, what will you do with it? Donovan's eyes turned to him, cold and calm. We will bring balance. For centuries, you ruled through control and lies. You convinced the galaxy that order meant obedience. We will show them the truth, that order means choice, and peace comes from understanding, not fear. The speaker hesitated. And if we refuse? Donovan's gaze hardened slightly. Then you will watch as your empire collapses under the weight of its own corruption. We don't need to destroy you. You're already doing that yourselves. At that moment, the doors to the chamber opened again. Dr. Ilara Niven entered, carrying a small glowing device, the prototype of her Unity core. It pulsed with soft blue light, humming like a heartbeat. This is what the galaxy needs, she said, placing it on the center table. A network that connects every world, every species, without the Council's control. It will allow communication and understanding across the stars. No secrets. No propaganda. No walls. The aliens stared at it in awe. You're offering this to everyone? The speaker asked, disbelief in his voice. Even us. Ilara nodded. Especially you. The room filled with murmurs. The idea was impossible, and yet, it was exactly what the galaxy needed. The speaker looked at the glowing device, then at Donovan. You could rule through power, and yet you choose peace. Why? Donovan's answer was simple. Because we've already lived through war. We know what it costs. Outside, thunder rolled as if the universe itself was listening. Donovan turned to leave, but before he stepped through the doors, he looked back one last time. You exiled us, he said softly. You thought we would vanish. Instead, we became everything you feared, and everything you needed. As the humans left, the speaker sat back in his chair, trembling. The storm outside began to fade, and sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. He realized what had just happened. Humanity had not conquered the Council. They had humbled it. They had taken the weapon of fear and turned it into wisdom. Over the following months, the Unity core spread across the galaxy. Worlds that had once been divided began to communicate freely. Trade routes reopened. Old enemies spoke again. Slowly, the galaxy healed. And at its center stood humanity, the species that had once been exiled and forgotten, now guiding billions toward a new age. But deep in the heart of space, within the command ship Erebus, Donovan stood before the stars, his reflection staring back at him through the glass. They think this is the end, he said quietly to Ilara, who stood beside him. But peace is never permanent. The Council may fall, but something worse may rise after it. Ilara looked at him, her eyes steady. Then we'll be ready, she said. That's what makes us human. Donovan nodded, his gaze turning to the horizon where distant suns flickered. The galaxy was changing again, and for the first time in its long history, it was not ruled by fear, but by those who had once been feared most. Humanity had returned from exile not as conquerors, but as architects of destiny. And as the Erebus drifted silently into the light of a new dawn, the words whispered across the stars once more. The Council's greatest mistake was thinking exile would end us. It only made us eternal.